Hey everyone, it's great to have you here. Close your eyes for a moment and imagine walking through the dusty streets of a village in Judea 2,000 years ago. The sun sets, tinging the mud houses, the smell of freshly baked bread wafts from the courtyards, and laughter escapes through half-open doors. It's feast night. The table, or rather, the room where everyone gathers, is much more than a place to satisfy hunger. It's the center of social life, a stage for alliances, a laboratory of wisdom, a mirror of the community. If this theme has already captivated you, go ahead and like this video, subscribe to the channel, and activate the notification bell so you don't miss the next chapter. In ancient Near Eastern cultures, especially among the Jews of Jesus' time, hospitality was a sacred commitment, opening the door to the traveler, guaranteeing shelter, food, and protection was a concrete way to honor God and remember the people's own history, who were once foreigners and needed welcome. Receiving the other was not just kindness, it was justice, it was obedience, it was honor. Saying shalom at the entrance was not a formal greeting. It was wishing peace, fullness, a well-being that begins with the shared meal and extends to the whole of life. Therefore, when someone knocked on your door, a relative, a neighbor, even a stranger, there was a living sense of responsibility and opportunity. To serve was to serve the divine. The arrival of a guest opened a sequence of gestures that spoke without words. First, the resting of feet tired from the journey, sandals removed, dust from the road dissolved in fresh water. In wealthy homes, a servant would bend down with a basin and pitcher. In simple homes, the host himself would take care of it. Washing feet was a relief and a sign of respect. Then, often came a fragrant touch of oil on the head, a sign of honor and joy, and a welcoming kiss. Cloaks were hung, the place prepared, and the person became, for a time, part of the family. It is difficult to overstate the value of these minutes. They told the visitor that he mattered, that there was a place at the table, that his name would be remembered in that house. Before the dishes arrived, there was another gesture with both practical and spiritual meaning. Washing one's hands, the right hand, considered the hand of honor and sharing, would be used for eating. The left hand, due to hygiene customs, remained separate from the meal. Forks did not exist as they do today. The table was dominated by bread, knives for cutting bowls, and common platters. The bread, often barley bread, among the poorest, and wheat bread when there were more. Resources was both utensil and symbol. With it, pieces of fish, seasoned vegetables, pastes, and olive oil were used. Breaking bread was, in fact, sharing life. And, around shared bowls, one learned to trust. Eating from the same plate was declaring fraternity. The layout of the space said a lot about the economic reality of the home. In simple families, people ate sitting on mats or low stools around a low table. In wealthy homes, influenced by Greco-Roman customs, meals might take place in a triclinium, 3 couches in a U-shape around a central table, with guests reclining on their left elbow and eating with their right hand. Reclining was a privilege of free men and an attribute of abundance. It was even a gesture associated with freedom celebrated in festivals like Easter. Women, in most formal contexts, ate in separate spaces or at different times, although in more intimate family settings they might share the same space. Children circulated amidst laughter and chores, learning from an early age that food and affection go hand in hand. The seating arrangement wasn't a detail, it was social language. The place of honor was next to the host, often to his right. Being closer to him signified prestige, influence, and recognition. It's not hard to imagine glances assessing who sat where, and how each gesture could solidify friendships or ignite jealousy. Deals were sealed, alliances were formed, and stories were born in the subtext of conversation. It's no coincidence that Jesus frequently commented on the seating arrangements of guests and the art of choosing the last place, a lesson in humility in a culture where table positions were a map of hierarchies. If this behind-the-scenes look intrigues you, share this video with someone who loves history and culture. And what was on the table? Many good things, though the abundance varied. Bread was the basis of everything. Olive oil and olives, seasoned and sustained. Chickpea and lentil pastes, vegetables, onions, and garlic gave body. Herbs like mint, dill, and cumin perfumed simple dishes. Dried fruit dates, figs, raisins, and pomegranates brought sweetness and color. Fish, especially in the regions near the Sea of Galilee, were common, fresh or salted and dried. Meat was rarer in everyday life and reserved for festive occasions or wealthier families. Lamb, goat, occasionally beef and poultry. Dairy products, such as cheeses and curd, made up the menu, and wine, almost always diluted with water, accompanied the conversation. There were no appetizers and desserts as we understand them today. The food came in waves, in a rhythm of hospitality and availability. The meal, however, began and ended with something more than food. It began and ended with gratitude. A blessing was offered before breaking bread, and often another after eating. The idea was clear. Everything that comes to the table comes from God, and eating without giving thanks impoverishes the heart, even when the table is full. Saying words of blessing made the everyday sacred and rehearsed a way of seeing the world. Each basket of figs, each jug of water, each breeze that refreshed the night deserved recognition. Pausing to give thanks was a way of setting the soul in the same rhythm as the house. Behind the scenes, the servants, when they were anywhere essential to the care, they brought basins and jugs, lit lamps, arranged the serving dishes, and maintained the flow of the night. In simpler settings, this task fell to the family members themselves. And this also carried honor. Whoever serves assumes the role of the host. Valuing the guest was an act of courage and generosity in a world where roads and cities could be hostile. To despise the visitor, on the other hand, was a public dishonor. It is no coincidence that wisdom stories and prophets insist on the beauty of opening the door and offering bread. At the height of the night, the house teemed with voices. Conversations revolved around work, politics, and hope. On festive occasions, songs and instruments provided rhythm to the joy. It was in this environment that many of Jesus' most striking words flourished: at the tax collector's table, with friends, at wedding feasts, at dinners hosted by Pharisees. The table was a place of unexpected encounters, of tensions and reconciliations, of questions and answers. Conversations about hand-washing, purity, and tradition, important themes for groups like the Pharisees, revealed not only rules, but worldviews. How to live faith in daily life, how to honor God by chewing bread, how to recognize one's neighbor in each shared portion. Did you enjoy walking through this room lit by lamps? Comment below which custom surprised you the most and share this content with someone who will love it. And don't forget to activate the notification bell. If, in the first chapter, we entered the house and smelled the bread, now we will sit among the guests and let the stories at the table speak to us. In Jesus' time, eating together was not just a daily occurrence. It was a gesture that shaped reputations, healed wounds, provoked debates, and inaugurated futures. Jesus often chose the table as a stage for revelation, not by chance. Meals concentrated what was most precious in the culture: honor, reciprocity, care, memory. When Jesus sat with someone, he touched the center of that person's life. There, the cards were literally on the table. If this journey is still enchanting you, leave your like, subscribe to the channel, and activate the bell so we can follow each chapter of this series together. One of the shocks Jesus caused was sitting with those who shouldn't be at a master's table. By accepting the invitation of tax collectors, people seen as traitors and impure, notorious sinners, Jesus crossed lines that many considered insurmountable. In Levi's or Matthew's house, he not only ate, but declared that he came to call sinners and not the righteous. The table, there, became a hospital. When Zacchaeus, the tax collector from Jericho, hosted Jesus, he heard, "Today salvation has come to this house." Notice this detail. Salvation enters through the house, and the table becomes the visible place of this life-changing experience. If this perspective moves you, share this video with someone who likes to reflect on the gospel in everyday life. The contrast becomes even stronger when we remember the dinner at the house of Simon the Pharisee. A woman, well known in the city, enters, weeps at Jesus' feet, anoints them with perfume, and dries them with her hair. Simon, a keeper of the rules of purity, had failed in the basics of hospitality. He offered no water for his feet, no kiss of welcome, no oil for his head, usual gestures of honor. The woman, however, with tears and perfume, does what he did not. Jesus transforms that scene into a luminous teaching about love and forgiveness. Those who have been forgiven much, love much, and the lesson remains: etiquette without mercy loses its soul. A table that excludes betrays its mission. Does this make sense to you? Comment below. Which gesture of hospitality speaks most to your heart? Meals were also moments when Jesus refined the hearts of his friends. In the home of Martha and Mary, service and listening meet. Martha rushes to serve and Service is a noble thing but gets lost in the weight of anxiety. Mary sits at the Master's feet and listens to him, and Jesus calls this the better part at that moment. It's not about choosing between working and contemplating, but about ordering the heart. A table without presence becomes a refectory. Presence without care leaves hunger. In Cana of Galilee, at a wedding feast, when the wine runs out, and a lack of wine was a sign of public shame, Jesus transforms water into good wine, saving the joy of the house, and reminding us that true hospitality is not ostentation, but generosity that is renewed. If you enjoy seeing how cultural details illuminate these stories, save this video to watch later. In the mountains and by the lake, Jesus turned the landscape into a dining room, multiplying loaves and fishes. He had the people sit down in groups on the grass, took the bread, gave thanks, and shared it, gestures that would be repeated at the Last Supper. The miracle is not just the abundance, it is the organization, the blessing, and the sharing that transform little into enough. The echo in the nascent Christian community is clear. After the resurrection, the disciples broke bread in their homes with joy and simplicity of heart. Thus were born fraternal suppers, agape meals, gatherings in homes where faith is translated into dishes and sharing. See how the table connects faith and life. If this inspires you, send it to someone in your family who loves to host people. The Last Supper deserves a closer look. On a festive night, probably around Passover, Jesus takes bread and a cup, gives thanks, and creates a living memory. Do this in remembrance of me. He links his offering to the most everyday and communal gesture that exists, seating together. The broken bread and the shared cup make each table a place of covenant. In the fourth Gospel, Jesus unites the supper with a gesture that summarizes hospitality. He girds himself with a towel and washes the disciples' feet. The Master takes the form of a servant. Authority is revealed in service. Their etiquette is transfigured into ethics. If I receive love, I must wash the feet of the other, even if it is the simplest of acts of kindness. Want to see more content that connects biblical symbols to practical life? Subscribe and activate the bell. Some parables reveal the heart of the kingdom precisely through the language of the table. In the great banquet, the invitation goes first to the usual guests, who make excuses. Then the host sends for the poor, the blind, and the lame, and fills the house with those who could not pay. At the king's wedding feast, joy and responsibility unite. Being at the table requires dressing one's heart in sincerity. Upon the prodigal son's return, the house bursts into celebration, a fattened calf, music, and dancing. While the older brother grumbles outside, the father invites him in. Everything I have is yours. God's table is not a prize for the impeccable. It is reconciliation offered. And the parable of the rich man and Lazarus denounces the danger of banquets without compassion. A lavish table that ignores the hungry at the door betrays God as justice. If these stories speak to you, leave a like now so that more people can find this content. There is also the etiquette of seating arrangements, and how Jesus subverts it. At dinners of honor, people sought the first seat. Jesus advises choosing the last, so that exaltation comes through the host's words, not self-promotion. In a culture of honor and shame, this was revolutionary. Humility was not weakness, it was wisdom. He also recommends giving banquets to those who cannot reciprocate: the poor, the crippled, the lame, the blind, dismantling the logic of calculated reciprocity. The hospitality of the kingdom does not keep score, it sows grace. And when Jesus speaks of people coming from the east and the west and taking their places at the table with Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, he projects into the future a diverse table, an extended family, an eschatological banquet where distances disappear. Some material details help to visualize the scene. Wine was generally diluted with water, sometimes in a ratio of 2 to 4 parts water to 1 part wine, not only for sobriety, but for health and custom. The toast was not ostentation. It was a blessing and shared joy. After the meal, a thanksgiving prayer was offered, recognizing bread, land, and human labor as gifts. In houses with the triclinium, the host might signify honor by inviting someone to recline closer to him. In simpler homes, grandeur lay in the generosity of the little things, placing the best olive oil in the center, offering the first piece of bread, reserving a place for the arriving traveler. The final touch, before and after, was washing hands, hygiene, yes, but also reverence for the act of eating together. And how can we rediscover this wisdom of the table today? Here are some practical tips. Slow down the pace of meals. even if only once a week. Set the table with intention, even if simply a candle, a cloth, a favorite plate. Begin with a short and sincere blessing, acknowledging the grace of the food and the people present. Create a moment of listening. Each person shares a part of their day. Invite someone from outside your circle, safely and carefully. Leave a place of honor for those who are usually invisible. Practice sharing. Take a lunchbox to a neighbor. Invite someone who is alone. Turn off screens to connect with the heart. If this list helps you, save the video and share it with your family group. Ultimately, the table is a small altar of everyday life, where the sacred and the simple embrace. Bread, conversation, laughter, tears, reconciliations. In Jesus' time, it was like that. Today, it can still be, because eating together is saying with gestures what words sometimes cannot. You have a place here. You are welcome. You are loved. And tell me in the comments, what practice do you want to try at your next meal?